You have to be happy. You got released. Я немного понимаю по-русски.
Who were the Russians that gave you info about Hunter Biden?
Hey guys, he's not going to answer any questions. I already told you that. So.
Oh, can I ask you a question, sir?
You can ask me anything.
Well, you know, no. I think you did an excellent job.
Thank you, boss.
Could you state your name, sir, for the record?
David Chesno.
Mr. Chesno, you really did an excellent job of bringing out the Bail Act, and you did a fantastic job of fighting for your client's First Amendment rights. You mentioned due process. You went to the Constitution rather than just law, and I think you made a very good case. You made a very good case for your client, arguing against a team of 5 lawyers. You held your own. You took a lot of personal hits, a lot of personal attacks. At one point, you kind of said, "Judge, is that enough?" How do you feel about your performance today?
I'm happy that my client's been released.
Your client's walking out the door, which is a huge win against a big team. And there's restrictions, but I think you made a great case of how trustworthy your client was, that he's performed it for the U.S. government for 10 years in a responsible way, and there's no flight risk here at all.
Well, I appreciate your paying attention. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Have a good night.
Good night.
There you go, Andy. It doesn't happen by magic. You got to hang around. You got to hang around the courtroom, and you got to talk to a lot of people. And it's really the fringe times that are really more important than those glitzy times. I mean, I got the only audio from the walkout. The New York Times didn't get it. You saw the CNN gal. The Washington Post didn't get it. AP was there. Reuters wasn't there. None of them got it. All their staff reporters, none of them got any audio. You know, I was the only one who got a statement from the lawyer. And you know, the whole idea of the walkout is get a statement, get audio, right? So that's the juice of that. They had told the client not to talk right from the get-go. So you know that once he doesn't answer to the Russian, my limited Russian, "Я немного понимаю по-русски" means, do you speak a little Russian? And then I was going to try to engage him with little Russian I knew, but as soon as he shut that down, he said, "My client's not going to talk. I'm going to do the talking." I said, "Okay, go right over to the lawyer, you know, and get the lawyer's statement." But you know, it's funny how all the big media kept trying to, you know, it was like a monkey with a can opener and a can, and it was just painful to watch the big media. Obviously, the lawyer's the guy who's going to do the statement. Ask the questions to the guy who says he's going to answer questions. So anyway, it was a nice win for Neighborhood News Network, and just shows you that these big media types, it's all about fashion and what kind of pantsuits they wear and how pretty their hair is, and they have beautiful teeth and nice blue eyes, but you got to be there. You got to have presence of mind to go to the action, to go to the juice, and so that's where I think we win in this battle.
George Webb, it was a fantastic sight to actually see you there covering the story the whole time. You were one of the only people. You were always walking around the building. You didn't see any news cameras. You didn't see any news vans like you normally see in a case that would actually be so big. The Biden whistleblower that was gonna come and testify, kind of maybe seemingly on Trump's side, is all of a sudden arrested once he lands in the United States, and there's no mainstream media there covering this story. And the gentleman's name is Alexander Smirnov, that we're talking about, and there's a lot of questions on who this Alexander Smirnov really is. Is he Ukrainian? Is he Russian? Is he from Los Angeles? Does he really know the Bidens? Like, is he rebuilding Ukraine? You come out today, you saying we found evidence that there's a nuclear scientist working for Russia. Like, who is this Alexander Smirnov character that's putting his name in this storyline here?
Well, I'll tell you the one here yesterday, and that's the one they want you to know about. And then I'll tell you the two that they don't want you to know about. There's one Smirnov, and gun your siren if the Smirnovs in Ukraine are more important. Gun your siren if the Smirnovs in Ukraine are more important. gun your siren if the Smirnovs in Ukraine are more important. Well, it must be. So, but I'm not going to talk about the two Ukrainian Smirnovs just yet. I'll talk about the Russian Smirnov, who was here yesterday. He didn't set foot in Ukraine, I don't think, until March to May 2017. I haven't read the brief yet this morning, but there was another motion filed. I haven't been in there to read the brief yet. They don't open until 9, so they just opened. But this guy is, we think, he's, here's what we know from the testimony yesterday. He's been an FBI informant for 10 years, but not just an every once in a while FBI informant. He has a handler, and the handler is part of the family. I believe I saw the handler yesterday. He was in the walk-in. Yeah, this was over here. It was interesting. These guys thought I was doing something. They came out with the guns when I was a couple days ago doing this story. But so not just that, Andy, but also $6 million in the bank, which tells me, and he's meeting with the handler every day, and he's a part of the family. Now, the whole family speaks Russian, and they don't speak much English. I saw the handler that I saw, the guy went in with the Azov boots, and the guy went in with a camo jacket. You'll see that on the walk-in. That's my video on the walk-in. Focus in on the Azov Brigade boots, because the Azov Brigade boots, it's pretty far down. But I was the only camera there for the walk-in, right? And I don't think major media would have known even that the trial was here unless I would have been doing videos the last 3 or 4 days, because the cameras didn't show up until a couple of minutes before. Yeah, here's the walk-in. You see the guy with the camo, and see how his face is all covered?
Mm-hmm.
You see the guy with the Azov boots and the camo? There's the younger son. There's Chesnov, the lawyer.
So
right?
this guy to the right you're talking about, this.
Yeah, he's sort of the handler. He's sort of the handler, if you notice. And see, he's trying to look Russian. He's trying to look like, hey, I'm a Russian guy. I'm a Russian orc. These guys are meeting with intelligence figures. But I went behind him. I knew that was the guy who was overplaying his hand, right? So I went behind him, made sure I was behind him in the security. Keep framing forward here. And notice the boots. The son is the one with the nice shoes, and then there's a brother or something that was dressed nice in a green plaid coat or something like that, or maybe a blue plaid coat. But here's the handler. See how he's bundled up, and they're trying to make him look like a Russian orc.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not. He speaks perfect Russian, and he speaks really good English, really super good English. So and just looking at the dynamics of this group when they went in, they were constantly looking at this guy, constantly. Like, what should we do next? What should we do next? And he was the one directing traffic, telling them where to go, where to wait, how to stay away from the media. He was directing the traffic the whole time. So he's definitely the handler. And now he's close to the family. They're definitely trying to walk separately, like here's family over here and here's handler over here. But now play it forward a little bit, Andy. Again, I'm the only guy with walk-in video. Walk-in is the most important thing, because now you want to look at the dynamics in the courtroom between the family members. When they say, hey, my girlfriend of 10 years, who he bought his house through, is sitting right here, you want to know who that is, right? So, yeah.
That was the end of the video right there, as close as I could get. Is that some like Butina gal walking next to the Russian handler as well?
It's probably the girlfriend. Does she have black hair? I can't quite see it. A long black straight hair?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. She's probably the girlfriend. And what they did was, in order to keep his identity hidden, I've already been threatened by the State Department this morning with 3 violations of federal law, by the way. Each of them was 5 years. So I said, well, do I get to try all the criminals in Washington that are sending all of our money to Ukraine for the NATO's ambitions? As NATO's, shadow army, the Burisma army. I mean, I don't mind going to jail for 5 years if I could, put all those guys up, Kolomoisky, and up for. Anyway, I've been threatened by the State Department with 3 very specific laws that I outed this guy with the information that some of our researchers provided in Europe. So. Yeah, see when they're leaving here, she's got a No. That's a reporter. The gal in the pink is a reporter.
Okay.
There's a gal that goes over to him. Keep playing this. There's a gal that goes over to him, and she's got the white fingernails.
Mm-hmm.
She's got the white. Now, after the lawyer interview, there's a third video I have, the walk away video. I call it the walk away. Yeah, that's the walk away. See her fingernails? See her Gucci purse? See the gold?
As a huge.
Mm-hmm.
That's the girlfriend.
Okay.
And she's about half the age of him. She's about half his age.
Is she Asian?
No, she's Russian.
Russians seem to have a little darker skin tone there, but this so what happened in the courtroom exactly? Does he have to come back and stand trial again? What's going on with the actual case?
Yeah, he won his release. So the trial is going to be held. I think the trial will be here. It's in the Central District of California, which is really Los Angeles. So it remains to be seen whether he's going to go. He had a house. He's been living in LA, actually in the San Juan Capistrano, Laguna Hills area. Tried to kind of case the area and case potential meetings. When I found out he was an FBI informant and I found out there was a handler, I thought, well, go to the nearest Russian restaurant nearest to his house. So that was the Anastasia Cafe. So I scoped out the Anastasia Cafe, and I had a political contribution that he made. To the somebody way back when. And so I had an address in Laguna Hills. So I stayed in Laguna Hills, and then I ended up sleeping in my truck one night. I'm not going to say exactly where, because I don't want to go to jail. Okay, I don't want to go to jail. I'm not stalking anybody, and I'm not intimidating anybody. They've already published a lot of information. This is the most important witness in America right now. So people have a right to know. If somebody's got $6 million from our government and they're meeting with them every day at the Anastasia Cafe in in Laguna Beach, the American public has a right to know that. They're trying to make this guy out to be like, we've been watching him. Wait for the video. Like, we've been watching him. You know, he's a Russian disinformation putter-outer. You know, it's Russian disinformation that Hunter Biden's a bad guy. You know, he made up stories about Hunter Biden. It's a Russian. He has all these Russian contacts. That's a bunch of bullshit. He's been living in the United States. He's lived in Laguna Beach for the last 4 years. They said he's moved here the last 2 years. I find that very doubtful by the records that I was able to dig up in Laguna Hills. It looks like he's lived there until very recently, and they're trying to make him look like a Las Vegas guy because Adam Schiff's running a compromise operation here in Las Vegas. But he's really a Laguna Hills guy. They say he's lived here 2 years, but everything is in his wife's name, and I believe the wife's house actually is more a part of an operation here for compromise for the Super Bowl and for other things. But needless to say, the handler has been living with the family, meeting with him on a daily basis. They even considered him a member of the family, right? And he's got $6 million in the bank. That's a lot of money, Andy. I mean, that's after expenses. Do you have $6 million in the bank?
No.
I don't have. I have less money than he reported on his savings. He said he had $6,000 in his savings. I have less money than he does. So, I mean, what he reported initially in 2020 and then recently, he didn't put the $6 million in there. But now they're trying to make him look like a Russian spy and being funded by the Russian government. So they're making it look like, oh, there's $6 million. He doesn't work for the Russian government. He works for the U.S. State Department. The U.S. State Department has a thing called OSCE. Or OCSE. I think it's OSCE, the Organization of States for the
Centralized Europe or something like that.
Yeah. And that's the diplomatic arm of NATO. That's where NATO puts all of its diplomatic spies. Yeah, go ahead and click this. This is where I got the threat of 3 different federal penalties. I told him, I said, I'm right over here in this hotel. Come get me anytime. All I want to do is be able to prosecute the Ukrainian guys. And I just throw the book at me, but throw the book at Kolomoisky. That's all I'm asking is a fair, even slate here. But go ahead and read the opening statement of Smirnov here at this And what it is the CIS countries. The CIS countries are the old former Russian Soviet satellite countries.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an anti-terrorism committee, and that's the NATO's foray into getting and meeting with all these Russian scientists that
Like
are the
Kazakhstans, Uzbekistans,
Yes.
Ukrainians, all those.
all the Saipov trucker route, the uranium route through the Saipov countries, all the stands where we've been talking about. And the job is we want to go in there, we want to develop relationships with these Russian scientists, the Nunn-Lugar plan. We want to bring out the bioscientists. We want to bring out the nuclear scientists. We want to flip them to our side and get them working for us so we could take all their stuff, attenuate it, and release it for live exercises in the United States. So we make all the money, right? That's the Atlantic Council's plan.
Mm-hmm.
So this guy is either in the nuke side or the bio side. Now, we found a lot of information that indicates that he's more nuclear than he is bio. But we'll see about that. But the idea, first of all, that this is somehow a Russian spy is completely erroneous. The idea that he's been in Ukraine for all this time and knows Hunter Biden really well is completely erroneous. What he did was he got brought to Ukraine, and the idea of OSCE, remember I was in Austria at Vienna, and I was talking about the OSCE Blackberries and how Epstein might have gotten the hijackers, the encrypted Blackberries in Austria in 1999, right? Remember he had the Saudi passport. OSCE had the encrypted BlackBerry technology, and they gave it to the KLA generals in Kosovo when Bo Biden was running Kosovo. So this with the Biden family, and this encryption technology goes all the way back to Kosovo in OSCE chair and Vice President Biden in discussions on Ukraine. Yeah.
This was back in 2014, and the OSCE does a lot of investigations, correct, on like anti-corruption and stuff like that. So if this guy is involved if Joe Biden is meeting with them, trying to kind of cover up some of his corruption back in the day, just like he did when he told him to fire that prosecutor and stuff. But the Smirnov guy there's Alexander Smirnovs that are charged with rebuilding Ukraine. And we've seen a lot of money being given to Ukraine from the U.S. government, billions and billions of dollars. And not all of it's just for war purposes. You know, they come in, they destroy a country, and then people have to come and rebuild it. So a lot of that money goes to that purpose as well. Is Alexander Smirnov, like, actually, do you think this guy is actually connected to the recreating and the rebuilding of Ukraine? Is that the FBI agent following you around right there? Oh, you're muted right now, George.
The takedown's coming. We might get the takedown on live action here. He's doing the radio right now, so we'll see. If I do get taken down, I have secreted information on thumb drives to a number of people. So I'm just putting out the yellow light right now. Yes, there's $486 billion at stake here. And the Alexander Smirnov you're talking about works for in Ukraine, and it works for the Minister of the Interior. And the Minister of the Interior is who they're laundering all the money through. And NATO is laundering the money into it, using the Azov Brigade as a NATO mercenary army or stay-behind army, right? Burisma means cover. Shadow means shadow. Burisma is just the funneling vehicle, right? We proved this with Alan Apter. Who was doing the IP addresses, who ran the Atlantic Council, ran Burisma as the front company, and the same IP addresses were being used by Kolomoisky's runner, which is Lev Parnas and Fruman. And I published those. They have all these clearances from all these different places because it's all the most advanced military technology as a force multiplier. Now, if you go right there, Andy, see that brigade there, right there? They call it
offensive guard.
The offensive guard. That's the unit that Alexander Smirnov runs in Ukraine, right? And so this is why I say this Russian Alexander Smirnov is to do signal reduction on the Alexander Smirnov that's in Ukraine. Yeah, this is recruiting people from all over the world to be a part of this mercenary army against the Russians. And the drive is to the Baku. It's a drive straight to the Baku. In the reconstruction, you will have a rebuilding of the army, and they will drive all the way to the Baku. They want to go all the way to Kazakhstan because they want to bring in from the Baku. They want the oil from the Baku to supply China instead of China depending on Russia for oil and gas and uranium. So this is a very strategic, geostrategic thing. The other Smirnov's even worse, who works for also the Minister of the Interior, and his name is Rusty Slav. Remember Rusty Staub? You're too young, Andy. You don't remember Rusty Staub from the Montreal Expos. They called him Le Grand Orange. This isn't Le Grand Orange, but this guy also has a thing called the Dobro bats. The Dobro bats. These aren't super spreader bats like Zhengli's bats, but these are Dobro, meaning like they'll beat the shit out of you bats. Like, you know, hitting somebody over the head with a bat. The Dobro bats are the most right-wing group in Ukraine. And that's the other Smirnov that they don't want you to know. So Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi are the two members of Congress that know about this program. They're the only ones left in the gang of 8. There's only 2 left, Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff. And that's who's running this program. So it makes sense that the operation would be based out of LA. It makes sense that he would do it over the border in Nevada to get the thing away from him. It makes sense that he would target the Orange County area where there's a lot of Republican money, the Laguna Hills, Laguna Niguel, San Juan Capistrano, you know, that whole area. It makes sense. It makes sense that they would run this operation out of here. But you can, here's Anthony Blinken meeting with these Dobro bats.
Mm-hmm.
These are the bad news platoon right here.
Yeah, they have these Dobro bats. The Alexander Smirnov seems to be in charge of the rebuilding, the reconstruction of Ukraine. That side of the Dobro bats, and then there's a side where they take this offensive guard unit, and that's like the Ukrainian kind of like police force, and they were involved. A lot of these Dobro bats were involved in the Maidan overthrow in 2014. The offensive guard is a lot of leftover kind of soldiers from Kolomoisky's Azov army being reconstituted into this offensive guard Dobro bat reconstruction of Ukraine military. They're not military units, but they definitely are. Go ahead.
They're close. I mean, Dobro bats. I mean, this. If you see their weapons, remember Vindman and his top secret clearance. Vindman was put into the White House to listen to the for exactly this reason, because they're using force multipliers. They're using the special forces, the SBU, that released the Kraken, whatever you want to call them, the Azov Brigade. They're using them to use force multipliers. You've seen these cameras from the drones that are dropping on Russian soldiers in foxholes. Do you notice how they're shaking back and forth? They're shaking back and forth. One guy was holding the dog. The dog was also shaking back and forth. That's not from a kinetic weapon. That's from a nerve weapon. That's affecting the spinal column. That's an organophosphate. That's a tabin. That's a sarin gas. That's a VX nerve gas. That's a Novichok, right? They're using force multipliers, and Vindman is the guy. The reason why they wanted to make Vindman the head of the Ukrainian military is because he has the clearance. He's one of the few guys that know what's happening in Odessa. Odessa is where all the force multipliers are kept, and the line is from Odessa. Vladimir Putin gave you a little bit of insight here with Tucker Carlson. He was saying, we know what's going on in Ukraine, and we know what's going on in Odessa. That long history lesson was to tell us that it's the hidden message there. He's not just telling us about Alfred the Great in the 600s. If you look at the Alfred the Greats that he was charting for the son and then the grandson and the great-grandson, it was a line right down the Dnieper River. It was a line starting where Kolomoisky's headquarters is for the Azov Brigade, and a line with the Alfred the Greats straight to Odessa. That's where the force multipliers are, and the Russians know it. And the Russians came out and said that they were using the chemical weapons. Just 2 days ago, the Interior Minister came out and said they were. And if you look at the constrictive, convulsive activity of the soldiers rocking back and forth, that's lower lumbar. That means it's getting into the inhalation system. It's crossing the blood lung barrier, getting into the bloodstream, and then it's affecting like the back of the brain is the pons area that does your fine motor movements and so forth. This isn't fine motor movements. This rocking back and forth, this gesticulating back and forth is more of an organophosphate. If you look at people dying of organophosphate deaths, you'll see that signature. So this is the Vindman secret This is the Burisma that they're trying to cover like crazy. That's why when Bobulinski came out with the blackberries on Wednesday, Bobulinski came to Comer's thing on last Wednesday. It's only a week ago, less than a week ago, right? He went to Comer's oversight committee and he said, hey, I've got thousands of pieces of information. Well, shit, in those blackberries is going to be all the Burisma stuff. It's going to be all the force multipliers. It's going to be the chemical weapons. It's going to be biological weapons. It's going to be everything. The dealing in uranium, the cyber hacking, it's going to be all the juice, right? We got to stop that shit now. So that's why they brought this guy out of nowhere. And they're trying to make him look like a Russian. He's not a Russian. He's a NATO spy is what he is. I mean, he's a NATO spy. OSCE is a diplomatic, yeah. People are putting out memes now of all these Russians that have blackberries. It's kind of funny.
It is actually pretty good. It's this Alexander. Ooh, my camera's getting blurry here. This Alexander Smirnov and these connections to Ukraine are very interesting. I do have oh, sorry, I got to make my camera focus here. You're muted. I think you muted yourself, George.
Oh, when you want your camera to go back, you put your finger by your eye, and then snap your fingers. There you go. There you go. There you go.
I don't know why it's doing that all of a sudden, but this I have a little video to play. It involves this FBI agent Jonathan Buma that was involved with the Rudy Giuliani Russian corruption case when it came to Trump and Lev Parnas as well. And in his story, he mentions this Dynamo character that is this informant that they're using that's informing on Giuliani himself. And there's kind of some theories out there that the Smirnov character is also this Dynamo character from the previous Giuliani Russia collusion case. So let me play this video real quick and let me get your thoughts on the Dynamo connection, George. You're muted again.
I'm going to put on my Michigan Beat Everybody hoodie.
Yes, so they did. Sorry, I got to find the video real quick. Follow George Webb on Twitter at RealGeorgeWebb1. All right, here's the video.
To do with it, I was at my wit's end. I saw important intelligence reporting being suppressed. I started to experience what I believe to be discrimination, character assassination, really. My name is Jonathan Buma, and I'm a FBI special agent.
2019, to his FBI supervisor, separate.
When I went and presented to the assistant director in charge over at the Los Angeles field office, he was very interested in the allegations concerning potentially implicating the Bidens and involved in business deals with Burisma, a company that was involved in alleged criminal activity. He's very interested, and he was adamant about packaging that information up and transferring that to the appropriate case agent right away. But during the same meeting, when I attempted to provide information that Rudy Giuliani may have been compromised by individuals suspected of being involved in Russian counterintelligence influence operations, he shut me down and the meeting ended. I came to know that Giuliani had received $300,000 from Pavlo Fuchs, a very powerful
Dynamo
businessman who had deep ties with a transnational organized crime syndicate. He was based in Ukraine. And that was deeply concerning to me, especially, having heard that Giuliani had been, working for the president pro bono. That my questions that were going through my head were, who does he really work for? I wasn't trying to, implicate Trump or do anything that would, injure his reputation. This reporting implicates Giuliani. He was the one that was in ongoing contact with foreign nationals and, political activists that would receive hundreds of thousands of dollars from these sources. And at that time, Joe Biden was not yet the Democratic nominee. I said to my co-handling agent, I said to him, why do they keep going back to the Bidens? So what if this is the leading edge of a disinformation campaign to create a theme of derogatory information about the Bidens in anticipation that Biden would be Trump's main political rival. And I started to experience pushback. All of my reporting came under really tight scrutiny, to the point where I went from, getting exceptional performance awards to, being told that I was an inconsistent performer and that I had all these administrative, I don't have a history of that, the 13 years before that. So it got to the point where it's pretty intolerable. So I filed a whistleblower complaint. All FBI agents get annual training concerning the protected federal whistleblower statute, which says that if you see misconduct in management, then you can file a whistleblower complaint with the inspection division. The managers involved in your chain of command are prohibited from committing any acts that could be considered reprisal or retaliation. From that point forward, the retaliation actually increased, and I experienced no such protection, and there's never any mention or acknowledgement outside of an automated email response saying we received your information, and a letter that said we received your information. Nothing, no interviews, no anything. And an email was sent with a brand new supervisors that specifically prohibited me from doing any reporting on criminal matters, public corruption matters, or reporting on.
Go ahead, George.
Yeah. So what happened was this is where they always give you the keyhole information, right? What happened was Rudy Giuliani was escorted by Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman to Anatevka, right, to see the fiddler. In Anatevka, they smoked cigars with the fiddler. I can't remember what his name was, Arkmedov or whatever his name was, right? There was an expense account for Rudy Giuliani's expense because Lev Parnas said he was going to pay all the expenses. After the fact, Lev Parnas is the one who moved $300,000 into that account to implicate Giuliani, right? Giuliani was given that account for expenses for the trip to Anatevka to smoke cigars with. He was set up by Kolomoisky. Maybe Giuliani's just that stupid and he's not a part of all this, but I think he's just playing a role as a doofus. But anyway, he was given an expense account for the trip to Anatevka. If you look up Anatevka and Rudy Giuliani, you'll see them smoking cigars in Anatevka, and that's the key guy in Chabad Lubavitch, by the way, who makes all the calls on the use of force multipliers. He's the guy who makes all the calls on the use of force multipliers out of Odessa. So it's an important guy. But you see what they're doing, Andy, is they're trying to protect the fact they're channeling money through, NATO's channeling money to the Azov Brigade, and they want to go to the Baku. And the Burisma means shadow. It means hidden, right? So anytime anybody gets close to actually reporting the truth, there he is. What they do is they bring up all this other kind of stuff. They're presenting you information. There he is. They're presenting you information, Andy, that sounds bad, right? But if you then explain the whole story, which is for this trip, there was an expense budget that Lev Parnas set up for him. We actually produced the IP addresses, which are the same as the head of NATO, NATO's think tank, which is the Atlantic Council, Alan Apter. I wish people would look at that kind of evidence. Where did these guys go from the FBI? Why don't they go to an IT course? If two people have the same exact IP addresses, that means that device, that laptop or that BlackBerry, I think it was a BlackBerry that it turned out to resolve to, means one guy gave it to the other guy. It means Alan Apter, the guy who ran the Atlantic Council, the #1 think tank, that's where James Jones is, Breedlove, all the NATO's of Supreme Allied Commanders. That's where they all are. They're giving their encrypted BlackBerry technology to Lev Parnas. That tells you they're partners. That tells you they're funneling the money from NATO into Ukraine, and that tells you that Chabad Lubavitch and Kolomoisky's the money handlers. And they go to these stupid places like Anatevka, this little Fiddler on the Roof village, to get you thinking about Fiddler on the Roof, right? You're rich man. If I had a subpoena, right? That's what you start thinking about, right? Rather, coma and subpoenas. What you're not thinking about is the fact that NATO's channeling the money into the Azov Brigade. That's the bottom line. It's just so simple.
Yeah, really. Yeah, Azov Brigade, the blow shit up and then they funnel it back into to reconstruct it
Eddie,
as
go
well.
back. Eddie, go
Oop.
back. Go back. Go back. Go back. Go
That
back.
was Lev Parnas' tweet from yesterday. I'll never forget when I showed Rudy the answers from Burisma CEO. He turned red with anger and screamed, "Bury it, get rid." So I was just playing the FBI informant Jonathan Buma. He was definitely, like, I'm pretty sure, talking to Lev Parnas as well. And during this
Could you click on
investigation,
these things? Can you click on what he put as evidence? What is he showing here?
yeah, give me 1 second. I got to find that tab. So in the first email, it says, were you aware that Hunter Biden had met, this is Parnas talking to Giuliani and showing Giuliani these emails about Burisma CEO. Were you aware that Hunter Biden had met at Ukraine with the State Department officials in both May 2015 with Blinken and December 2015? What did you understand the purpose of those contacts were? And this is the Burisma CEO answering. We never approved or asked him to conduct those meetings on behalf of Burisma. So he's talking to Hunter Biden about setting up that meeting. Did you ever learn why VP Joe Biden asked for Shokin to be fired as PG? And Burisma CEO replies, we learned about it from newspapers and internet. We never had contacts with VP Biden during his visits to Ukraine. Please detail any contacts you had with VP Joe Biden and his office from 2013 through 2019. Did Hunter ever facilitate any of those contacts? No one ever from Burisma ever had any contacts with VP Biden or people working for him during Hunter Biden's engagement. Did VP Biden or his staff assist you or your company in any way with business deals or meetings with world leaders or in other assistance? No. Did you ever become aware of documents suggesting $900,000 was paid to Hunter Biden for lobbying his father? No. So it's just Burisma CEO kind of denying all associations with VP Joe Biden at the time.
Well, okay, so Zlochevsky is the guy in name only. That's the head of Burisma. Cofer Black runs Burisma for the CIA. But Zlochevsky here is trying to say that when Joe Biden went to Ukraine and said, if in 6 hours I'm getting on a plane and I'm going back, I'm talking to Barack Obama, and if that prosecutor general, Shokin, isn't fired, you're not getting the money. $1 billion.
Mm-hmm.
1 billion, not 900,000, 1 billion, right? And then he goes, well, son of a bitch, right? Now, we had that out of Joe Biden's mouth. If he didn't have that conversation directly with Burisma, who cares, right? He's obviously affecting the government of Ukraine with a bribe. I mean, that the $1 billion is the bribe, or the, here we go. I mean, I don't know if this isn't considered evidence. I don't know what is. Here we go.
Here's the famous Joe Biden fire the prosecutor.
Our team or others to convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
They put in place someone who was solid, George Webb, and we're still dealing with Biden corruption in Ukraine 9 years later from this moment.
This is why the Blackberries, again, the Blackberry server on Capitol Hill, Senate Sergeant of Arms, is so important, because it's running the war. It is NATO's Burisma for running NATO's war against Russia, their stay behind army war. It's an active biological war. It's not a kinetic, well, now it's kinetic with missiles. They're doing the missile technology, but all during that time, we're testing on the people of Donbass, Donetsk, Lugansk, etc. This is an active biological war. The reason why this goes all the way back to NATO trying to stop they had a NATO exercise in '67, Russian tank invasion, and it was the Fulda Gap exercises. And I can't remember, but the only thing they came about was they couldn't use nukes because it would the nuclear missiles left too much residue, and after the war was over, it would be just befoul the whole city. So then they said BIOS, but it had to be something that looked like that was effervescent, that would have its effect and then not be traceable, right, and be stealth. And they've been working on this ever since. When OSCE is the front for this, by the way, because when OSCE first went in, when the bioagents, when Rumsfeld moved the bioagents from Iraq to Odessa, 2005, and we know they're there because Andy Weber waved the anthrax underneath Obama's nose. Remember shake, shake, shake?
Mm-hmm.
Shake your anthrax? Yeah. So we know it's there, and we know it moved there. Now there's this guy named Nicholson, who's on my Twitter. He was at OSCE, and he was murdered. Right at 2005 when the bioagents came in. Dan Nicholson, he's on my Twitter somewhere. But I got a lead this morning that said that there was a book written about the foul play where they killed him. But he's an older guy. But anyway, and this guy was saying Vindman killed him. Vindman supposedly runs this dark, dirty tricks operation out of Odessa. I copied Vindman. I said I don't think Vindman did it. But I said, Alexander Vindman, did you kill Nicholas, Nickolas? Did you kill him? I don't know. I asked Vindman. I don't know if he killed him or not. But I know Vindman runs the dark arts operation out of Odessa. I mean, that I know. Was he Novichoked? We know there's Novichok, by the way. The one good thing about the novelty poisoning now, that we know that Odessa has Novichok as well. So we know that that's in the arsenal of Vindman for an assassination squad. That's in the arsenal. We know that also Christopher Steele had a relationship and was giving Novichok, and he may be the one, Christopher Steele may be the one when he went down and had his first arranged marriage, that first Ukrainian woman, and did the Cossack dance. Remember when he went to the Cossack village and did the Cossack dance? Again, an obvious diversion. That was to give them the chemical weapons. They did not have Novichok in Iraq. They did not have Novichok in Iraq. So in order for them to be using Novichok on the battlefield right now with the drones, they would have had to have gotten that from Portendown and Christopher Steele.
Mm-hmm. And remember the U.S. Air Force, when they released this was kind of during COVID, they wanted some like Russian blood samples so they could like kind of do some biological testing, and all this biolab stuff was being unearthed in Ukraine at the time. So this is kind of what Putin was worried about. He was worried about his people. We've had previous reports of Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. There were some tick viruses. There were some anthrax breakouts in little villages in those areas. There were SADS. You covered SADS to SARS. There's the same thing happening in those countries as well. So there's a lot of this biological testing going on in this area under covert U.S. operations.
Yeah. After this story broke, Andy, the Russians came out and said that they were using weapons on the battlefield, biological weapons on the battlefield. And you need a little more memory in your computer, Andy. That's why you're getting that shift. Gun your engine if this Smirnov's not as important as the Ukrainian Smirnovs. If you gun your engine if you think the Ukrainian Smirnovs are more important than the Russian Smirnov that's being put in front of us. Okay. So, yeah. So here they're saying the allegations of biological warfare. What's the date on this, Andy?
This is December 2nd, 2022.
Yeah, there's a more recent one. There's a more recent one where there's a chemical weapon, and you could see it. And it all came about because of this drone unit. You know, the house that got blown up in Sterling, Virginia, out by Lados, out by Chantilly. That Kelly Woods, her 102nd Special Forces, that's their specialty. Drones that, you know, kind of pour organophosphates like honey from a pitcher, like honey from the sky, right? And they can pour it, and it's heavier than air, and it fills up just like you would a glass of milk or a pitcher of orange juice. It fills up. It fills the whole foxhole up, and the guy doesn't understand. He's in his sleep. When he wakes up, right? If for the ones that wake up, they throw in the little bomb, you know, and kill them. But they're completely disabled. That's why they can't grab the hand grenade and throw the hand grenade out. Normally, if the hand grenade drops in your foxhole, this happened to my dad in Guadalcanal, you pick up the hand grenade and you throw it out of the foxhole. But when you've been already kind of taken out, your nervous system's been sort of, and this is ephemeral. This is very ephemeral and effervescent. It hits you, and you're just kind of in a grog state. Then they can drop the grenade in, and then they die. But when they die, you'll notice this quivering, this rocking back and forth, very toxic effects on the central nervous system. Go ahead, read this, Andy.
So this is the Novichok nerve agent poisoning. On August 20th, 2020, a 44-year-old male who was previously healthy suddenly became confused and began to sweat heavily on a domestic flight in Russia approximately 10 minutes after departure. He vomited, collapsed, and lost consciousness. After an emergency landing, the man was admitted to the toxicology unit of a local hospital in Omsk, Russia, approximately 2 hours after symptom onset. According to the discharge report, the patient presented comatose with hypersalivation and increased diaphoresis and was diagnosed to have respiratory failure, myoclonic status, disturbed carbohydrate metabolism, electrolyte disorders, and metabolic encephalology, if I pronounce that correctly. So you're getting the theory that Navalny wasn't even feeling sick until he was on the plane. And then more about the nerve agent on August 22nd. The patient was transferred by a German air ambulance to the Charité University in Berlin at the request of his family. Severe poisoning with cholinesterase inhibitor was subsequently diagnosed. 2 weeks later, the German government announced that a laboratory of German armed forces designated by the Organization of Prohibition of Chemical Weapons had identified an organ phosphorus nerve agent from the Novichok group in blood samples collected immediately after the patient's admission to Charité. So you think this Alexei Navalny, this Russian character, was poisoned by Novichok, and
yes, I do.
By some type of agent that came in, or was it a drone? Do you think?
No. You could do this in food and stuff. I mean, Putin chef. I want to know where Alexander Prigozhin is. I want to know where Prigozhin is, and if he was on that flight, because you know, you have a chef not for eating fancy food. If you're running a country, you have a chef to get rid of your enemies, right? I mean, that's kind of like the pharmacist back in the Romeo and Juliet. You know, it's like the apothecary is not just to give you, Epsom salts. It's to get rid of your enemies. So where's Prigozhin? Where are the people in the diplomatic corps? Who was on the plane? Who flew him over there? Who, for instance, where's Skripal? I want to know where Skripal is. I want to know where Christopher Steele is. A lot of times they reward guys if they do the nasty and they do the poisoning, then because he got poisoned on the plane. Remember, Novichok, to the touch, Andy, to the touch you die, right? So you have to be all gloved up. You have to be masked up. You inhale it, you're dead, right? It's 10 times more potent than VX nerve gas, right? Which is more potent then again from the original Ambrose creations and Schreiber creations of tabin and sarin gas. Okay, so this is a very potent organophosphate, and the reason why it's good to have organophosphates is organophosphates break down in the system, right? You can't see them later. That's why they had to get him into a lab. That's why they had to get him to a Berlin, where the chem lab is, because they wanted to say we caught Putin red-handed. But my problem with that whole story is nobody was gloved up for a Novichok poisoning. If you were the guy, well, first of all, if Putin wants to poison somebody, why don't they just poison him in the prison and kill him there? Why do they wait for him to get on a plane going to a NATO lab so that they can prove that that Putin's a poisoner. That makes no sense at all. It's the same thing as why are they presenting a NATO spy as a Russian spy here? It's completely bass backwards. And all the receipts are there for every reporter in this building. He has $6 million that came from OSCE, which is NATO's diplomatic arm. And he's been working with a NATO handler and a State Department handler for 10 years. How the hell does that mean he's Russian? Just ask yourself that question. How could this possibly be Russian disinformation? Yet they spend money to have these FBI guys come on and talk about. Again, Andy, I went to the picnic table that he supposedly was poisoned at. I was in Portendown where Skripal was, where his daughter was. Again, he supposedly went from his house and got it on a door handle at his house. I walked every step of the way to get to that park bench. It's over a mile. With Novichok, either you're out or you're in, right? You don't get sick later on, right? So he could have been poisoned with Novichok, but it was Novichok that somebody put on the park bench. Now, to me, if I'm Christopher Steele and I've been running chemical weapons guys back and forth to Portendown for 20 years for Downer and Dearlove, and I have the feeling that somebody's being a double agent, I put the Novichok on the park bench. You saw the little river. I did 10 films on the Novichok River there, right? In Salisbury. I went to the bench. I did a couple of shows sitting on that bench. Okay, I'm telling you, there's no way he could make it from that door handle at his house, which is way up by the train station, walking all the way down there. Even if he got into a cab, he couldn't have made it, and his daughter couldn't have made it. There's no way. But now, was he on the plane with Navalny is my next question, because Skripal or the daughter are not the poisoners in chief, but they're the poisoners in private, right? Those are the first people I would suspect, because nobody was gloved up. Now, if you knew you were going to poison, right, Navalny on the plane, wouldn't you have all the people from the Russian prison and the Russian airport and all the Russian, wouldn't they all be gloved up and say, okay, here you go, here's our Novichok boy, right? None of them were. It doesn't fit. He would have been sick going to the plane. He didn't get sick till he had his first meal on the plane. So this is why, but every time they do one of these kind of screwed up operations, they give you great information, because what came out of this is they also have Novichok in Odessa. The only way they could have got, Saddam Hussein didn't have Novichok. The only way they could have got it is Christopher Steele and Portendown. And that's very important metadata, because that means the Russia came out 2 days ago and said they were using chemical weapons on the battlefield. It's this 102 drone unit. You know the house that blew up, Andy?
Yep.
You know the house that blew up in Sterling, Virginia? She worked for the 102nd. The 102nd's the one that does the drone, honey from the sky drones. That's the 102nd. That's the house they blew up.
So that is actually some great stuff. How did it get to the point where
does he look like he's been hit with Novichok when he's walking there off the plane?
No.
To me, he doesn't look like. He looks like he got poisoned in a hospital. I mean, I would be worried about. Yeah,
that's just we've seen these stories. Different journalists, Russian or some Russian agents poisoned in Salisbury that you're going over with Sergei Skripal, and now this Navalny death. I don't know if George is actually still there or not. Your video's kind of going in and out. And
no, I took off the shirt because the sun came out here. But Andy, I just wanted you to know, Michigan beat everybody. I just wanted you to remember that.
Michigan did beat everybody, and they also beat Donald Trump in the 2020 election. Do you think that's going to happen?
No. There's a big swing event that's occurring. The big swing event is coming up on Saturday at Albion. This will probably be the thing that wins. Look at it this way, Andy. The FBI says, and Hillary Clinton says, that Trump swung Michigan and Wisconsin. I think it was Michigan. It was $300 in ads. It was something like $89 in Wisconsin that swung Putin swung through this catering company that Prigozhin was running. So all we have to do is spend $1 more. I'm pretty sure that the rental of Albion, Michigan, for the place in Albion is more than $300. We're going to end up swinging, by the logic of the FBI and by the logic of Hillary Clinton. Remember, it was $333 that were spent by Putin and Prigozhin to swing Michigan for Trump. So we're going to spend $334 to make sure he wins again.
It's gonna take a lot of work to make that happen. So that's partly why we see Trump flying all over the country. There hasn't been a citizen journalist in a news organization that's helped defend you more in the past couple months than George Webb in Neighborhood News, Mr. Donald Trump. So make sure you show up to the event in Albion, Michigan. We can make a thing of it if he came and we got into the J6 timeline and what happened and start uncovering some of this corruption that's going on against him and some of the charges that have been put out against him and his Trump organization. But yeah, we also need to dig into this Smirnov situation a little bit more. We don't even is there like an actual picture of this guy out there? Like is it kind of weird in this big public court case that there's no picture, or there's not even, like, no one even knows who this guy is? We're still all kind of guessing.
I sat next to him. I sat next to the court sketch artist, and I saw 12 different sketches on 4 different pieces of paper. And the guy's pretty damn good. But if you know Zelenko, you know, the Zelenko protocol with the hydroxychloroquine before they put in hat fill to kind of get that off course, and then later be the hydroxychloroquine champion. But Zelenko he looks like Zelenko without the beard. And this guy put out, now the sketch artist, they probably bought the picture from him and said he's a protected person. But the State Department, when it came at me with 3 different federal regulations, chapter and verse, threatening to arrest me this morning if I didn't have it right with this Zelenko that was the anti-terrorism liaison for OSCE for the CIS countries. And I think we got it right. Now they're protecting their informant, but wait a minute, the American people have a right to know if they're also, the FBI is meddling in U.S. elections. If they're presenting a false witness to take out a true witness, that's meddling in U.S. elections. So everybody in the FBI, you come get me, we have to go get you, right? Because you're basically admitting that you're manipulating the election. You're doing another crossfire hurricane here because you're presenting one of your informants who worked for you for 10 years where you had daily control. You should have known whether he had $6 million or not, right? You have control of the SWIFT network. You have control of the CFIUS network. You have control of, I can't remember what the anti-money laundering network is. You would know he had $6 million.
Naboo?
Well, I don't know. He doesn't work for Naboo because these other guys probably work for Naboo. The other Smirnovs probably do. But what I'm saying is, if I'm meeting with you every day, Andy, remember when I was living in the studio with you guys, okay, in Michigan? And then
the good old days, George Webb.
Right? You're gonna know if I have $6 million or not. Right? You're gonna know if I take trips somewhere, right? Because I'm living with you, right? We were living in that studio because I didn't want to go back to. I mean, I love the African family, but I was with 2 princesses, two princes, an African queen and another African queen. I mean, with 6 royalty, and I'm feeling really guilty going into the refrigerator for a glass of milk, you know, because I got to let Prince 1, Prince 2, and then, you know, Princess 1, Princess 2. So anyway, I don't mean to get too jokey about it, other than to say that that's how tight the relationship was between the FBI handler and the informant. They were meeting. I say it's the Anastasia Cafe. Go ahead, read this, Andy.
So this is going on during the case. So prosecutors argued that his foreign intelligence contacts could resettle him if he were to flee the U.S. now. Prosecutors also said that Smirnov, 43, has access to $6 million in liquid funds, which he did not disclose to pretrial services. Instead, he told them that he had only $1,500 in cash on hand and $5,000 in a personal checking account, according to the government. Prosecutors also noted that Smirnov is a dual U.S. and Israeli citizen, while Smirnov has also volunteered to turn over his Israeli passport. Prosecutors say he could get a new passport at any time at an Israeli consulate. So is he some type of Mossad agent as well here? But is that where he's getting the $6 million from?
Well, yeah, exactly. He's what I call a finder. And a finder is, your job is to go make contacts, go to these nuclear. If you read the hi, my name's Alexander Smirnov, and he's making the speech at the CIS. I think he's talking about, the loose nukes. He's not talking about loose bios. He's talking about loose nukes, the CIS speech, the OSCE speech he makes. But my job is now, once I find it, because we had a lot of uranium fall off the truck from megatons to megawatts. About 90% of the uranium, the highly enriched stuff, didn't get to Piketon. Okay, this is why I got arrested originally, where they tried to throw some bullshit Jerome Corsi story on top of me to divert people from that original story, which was the State Department's making market in this stuff. Their Atlantic Council's holding it, and they're brokering it off and selling it to people with nuclear or biological ambitions. That's all there is to it. Okay, that's why they fucking arrested me. Okay, I mean, that's the bottom line. I was going to Piketon to interview people who said these tanks were empty. They were fouled with plutonium, which meant it came from Russia, because plutonium's a side effect of these breeder reactors. So it was the real stuff. It was coming from Russia. Mark Lambert was sending those containers, those Worthington cylinders, were contaminated with plutonium. And these people are all dying because plutonium is 200 times more radioactive as far as health effects, with the alpha particles and beta gamma particles, all that shit. All the transuranics, the lawyer who I talked to me about all the transuranics and said, hey, these people are all dying, but they're not actually unloading the depleted uranium, or it was not depleted, but had been watered down. It was not, but down blended. It was not down blended. The down blended uranium wasn't getting to Piketon. So I know it had to stop somewhere. We had the Saipov truckers, we had the receipts, right? We knew that it stopped in Odessa, right? The closest port, uranium's very heavy, so you don't want to start moving around on the land. It breaks truck axle, right? And you don't want to, especially Ukrainian roads, or Michigan roads, you don't want, anything heavy going up and down those roads. You're going to break an axle. So that's why you tend to keep this stuff in port cities, and that's why Odessa makes so much sense. That's why Vindman makes so much sense in running the operations out of Odessa, right? And once you have top secret clearance and you have the fences and so forth that you need for uranium, to protect uranium, that's the classic place that you want to put the bios there too. You want to put the chems there. You want to put it all behind the same fence. You want it all behind the same fence. So that's the nature of this. Is I think 90% of the uranium fell off the truck. Now I got to send a finder in to go find it. And the best way to do that is for people who are doing, you remember Melissa Mann, and I can't remember her father's name. Yeah, this is the very interesting guy here. This Alexander Smirnov is very interesting. He's a nuclear guy. And
is he the one finding the uranium?
No, but I'll tell you what, Andy, I was given this picture before they came in, and he looked so much like the guy in the camouflage coat. He looked like the son of this guy.
Okay.
Smirnov ran, let's go a little longer today, Eddie, because it's worth going into. General Smirnov, or Colonel Smirnov, ran the Nuremberg trials for the Nazi doctors, if you remember. He was at the Nuremberg trial. So he had contacts Colonel Smirnov had contacts with OSS, Wild Bill Donovan and Alan Dulles, CIA guys and so forth. And so there was an interplay. There was a whole bunch of nuclear meetings, SALT talks, and so forth. And that Smirnov played a role after and post-World War II era, right? So I don't know if this is his kid or not, but this guy spoke.
Talking about this guy, loves Smirnov?
Yeah. I think Colonel Smirnov, go ahead and read the biography, because I know he did Nuremberg.
Lev Smirnov was a Soviet lawyer, chairman of the Supreme Court of the Soviet Union. Oh, this was maybe later on. I may have the wrong guy, George Webb. I got to do a little more research.
Right guy. I think that may be the right guy. Well, anyway, but what I'm saying is, after the Soviet Union fell, they
Yeah,
said,
he did participate in the work of the Nuremberg International Military Tribunal as an assistant to the chief prosecutor from the Soviet Union. Roman Rudenko supported the charges section by section. Crimes against civilians, crimes against humanity committed by Nazis in the occupied territories of the Soviet Union, Czechoslovakia, Poland, Yugoslavia, Greece, individual guilt of defendants, and evidence of guilt of criminal organizations.
yeah, see, he had all the Russians took over incel reams where Eric Traub worked. So the Russians had all the juice. And Dulles had to approach Smirnov and say, hey, lay off, right? So there had to be a rapprochement there. There had to be a conversation going on between those guys. There had to be a dialogue going on between those guys because they were saying, hey, lay off the incel ream stuff, lay off the Eric Traub stuff, lay off the Otto Ambrose stuff. We want those guys. So there had to be a push and pull here. And the Russians, of course, got Traub for 3 years. And maybe that was a part of the Lend-Lease deal, was if you don't lay into Traub at the Nazi Nuremberg trials, we'll let you have him for 3 years. But there's no sense in having one side having an asymmetric advantage over another side in a Cold War. Because then it's just, especially when America has bags of money. So Victor Rothschild and Donald McLean and the Cambridge Five they brought him to the United States so the United States could be led on that, hey, the Russians are ahead of you in biowarfare, right? And they did this again and again. They sent out Pasechnik in '89. They sent out Ken Allebeck in '93. They keep saying, oh, it's way bigger than you think. It's way bigger. It's way bigger. And that allowed the NATO contingent to build up their, oh, well, we better have, defense. And so it's a two-edged sword. You could say, I'm trying to defend myself from all these things. And here's all the notes from the Russians. And that allows you to build the offensive capability. And they don't really want to use the weapons against each other. They want to use the weapons against you and me, right? But they want to have it to be ephemeral. They want it to be, kills you or makes you sick, better yet, because then it takes the whole family down, but nobody can trace it. That's why they've invested so much in money in Ralph Barrick with the no-seum technology, the hidden ligation, the transparent ligation of cloning in genes and so forth. They don't want any, no footprints, zero footprint is what they want. So my point is that I think he's a finder. I think he's go in there, find these criminal organizations like Georgia's being led. There's all these warlords in these CIS countries now. Okay, there's all these warlords in these CIS countries, and you go in there and say, here's $1 million if you can give me a softball of highly enriched uranium. That's what you want this guy to do. That's what you want Smirnov to be doing. You don't want him to be or bioagents or something like that. You don't want him to be doing AK-47s. You can get those from Kalashnikov. You can get those from Bill Wellen. You can get those from Paul Wellen in Kingsmead Arsenal in Michigan. Why do I need to send a guy on a plane over to Kazakhstan so many times? But Nazarbayev, who was running Kazakhstan, had all the BIOS and all the nukes from the old Soviet days. That's where the Soviets refined all their uranium. That's where they had all their breeder reactors. That's where they did all their rocket firing. That's where the Cosmodrome is. That's where all their uranium resources were. That's where all the bioweapons were, Stepnogorsk, Novosibirsk, all these places that Ken Allebeck and Pasechnik talked about. So that's the gold mine. That's where you send the finder, right? You don't send him off into, Estonia. If you want poorly made wooden shoes, send him to Estonia. But if you want the juice, you want the nukes and the bios, you're going to send him to Kazakhstan. You're going to send him to Astana. You should be astonished by the skyline of Astana and how rich those people have gotten there in Astana, astonishingly. That oil, of course, and Cheney went in there and did oil with them, but also the uranium. Cheney's dad was a uranium miner, so they found a shit ton of uranium. Halliburton went in there big time. So that's what I'm saying is you want your finders to be out there looking for stuff that you can capitalize on. Either start a pandemic with a live exercise, bioagents. Felix Sater was the guy doing that. They were going back and forth to Chernobyl. Chernobyl is where they wanted to have a whole nuclear reservation because it's already befouled with spoliation. They wanted to have a whole nuclear reservation. And Felix Sater was the guy working with Akhmetov, I believe, or Vexelberg, one of the two, Russian oligarch or Ukrainian oligarchs, to create a nuclear reservation there. So this is not speculation. This is not speculation. Here we go.
Sorry, it made me a little paywall came up, but here's a little article that's going on right now. On the battlefield, Ukraine uses Soviet-era weapons against Russia. So not only with biologicals are they using these Novichok agents and some of the stuff that they stole their scientists and started creating some of these biological weapons in the biolabs, but they also went into the storage and started pulling out some of these old Soviet era weapons and are actually using it against the current Russian army.
This is Vindman. This is Vindman, the Mark of Vindman right here. He was the one meeting with all the Russian people at all the NATO exercises. They weren't really NATO. They were like joint, I can't remember what they call them. OSCE does these joint exercises. OSCE is sort of a bridge group between the old Russia satellites and NATO. So you could do these OSCE battle exercises in various places. Like what if we had a terrorist outbreak here, terrorist outbreak there? Let's all work together, share information, share intelligence, etc. So OSCE is the angle here with the CIS countries. And we know this guy is OSCE. Right, and of course that's why they're threatening to arrest me. They wouldn't be threatening to arrest me if it wasn't right. If I was completely wrong. That was the beautiful part. We did the old kind of gypsy switch on him, Andy, because for 5 days, I wouldn't have been. Put it this way: if I didn't know that that Smirnov here lived in Laguna Beach and went to the Anastasia Cafe and did the political contributions, and I won't say lives on Jacques Cousteau Street. But see, I said the wrong name, so I didn't out anybody. But I wouldn't have been there all weekend. I wouldn't have rented a Chevy Silverado and slept one night in it. I wouldn't have been going through San Juan Capistrano and know that May 19th the Swallows return there. There's no reason I need to know all that information other than I'm on the right guy. Now, if I thought the Smirnov in Ukraine, the guy running Recreate Ukraine and the guy running the Offensive Guard, the mercenary organization, was there, what the hell was I doing in California? Why wasn't I in Ukraine? Right? That's why. Right? I'm on the right guy, but we used those 5 days very wisely because we were able to expose these two Smirnov guys. That's the juice in Ukraine. That's the real story that they're not going to tell you. That's why they took one of their informants and dangle them out here for the press. And you know, these press people, they ate it all up. They ate they sucked it up like bird droppings from Adam Schiff, right? It's disgusting. It's disgusting. It's like they're little automatons. It's obviously going to be a story to protect the operation. It's not going to be, he's not a Russian. He's not a Russian spy. He doesn't have a lot of Russian intelligence contacts. He has daily NATO contacts, daily OSCE contacts. He's spoken at OSCE events. Can you read that preamble of his speech at OSCE?
I tried is it on your Twitter page?
It's four little, yeah, it's on my Twitter. It's four little things. It's good morning, everybody. Hi, my name's Alexander Smirnov. Right? I'm here at OSCE at the CIS countries for anti-terrorism event. You know, I mean, they're getting on me. They're threatening to put me in jail because I'm publishing open source information. Right? There's no reason for that. That is typical open source information that is available to anyone. There it is.
So here's the Smirnov. Was this from yesterday? The deposition from yesterday?
No. This is an old speech that he made. OSCE CIS speech that he made.
Okay, so this is old speech. My name is Alexander Smirnov. I represent the Anti-Terrorism Center of the Member States of the Commonwealth of Independent States. Our center is a specialized sectoral body of the CIS and is designed to ensure coordination of interaction between the competent authorities of the CIS member states in the field of combating international terrorism and other manifestations of extremism. The Commonwealth of Independent States currently includes 11 states: Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Moldova, Russia, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Ukraine. Before I proceed with the keynote speech, I would like to thank the Office of the OSCE representative on the freedom of the media and personally Andre Richter for the invitation to such a representative event. And so then we get into the legal framework and experience of the CIS member states in countering disinformation emanating from terrorist and extremist organizations. And this is written by Alexander Smirnov, Executive Secretary of the Scientific and Advisory Council of the Anti-Terror Center of the CIS member states. Good afternoon, dear participants of the expert meeting. My name is Alexander. Did I just read that part? Oh, you're just going into
I just copied it, but
okay.
But see where he talks about the Kaspersky lab and he talks about Yandex.
Mm-hmm.
Kaspersky was another one of these things like Dmitry Alperovich, where you take over a private company that's doing something where you're putting code on people's desktops, and then you write backdoors. So Dmitry Alperovich's dad wrote these tools from the Vault 7 toolkit, right? That was the whole library, basically, that the CIA got from the Russians when the fall of the Soviet Union. So the first thing they went, and when I was at Network Associates, they brought Dmitry in, and he took over and wrote backdoors into the McAfee product. But McAfee had already rolled up 2 or 3 other antivirus companies at that time. I think McAfee, Bill Larson went on to buy Kaspersky, if I'm not mistaken. And Dmitry went over to Kaspersky for a while, because Dmitry wanted to put the back door into Kaspersky Labs as well. Now, Yandex is a little different. Yandex was like a search engine, but it had a back door. It was supposed to be like a popularity search engine, but it also had a bug in it to backdoor information. And what they do is when the programs update, like if you sign up for automatic updates, it's a two-way street. It sends up information. It uploads information into the cloud, little bits at a time. It's not a whole big trove, because that's easy to spot. You can see the number of packets going in and out. It's easy to spot. So I saw some activity around me, Andy, and I'm moving away from the action a little bit. But if you bring up Yandex, but anyway, there was a hacking thing of Kaspersky. And what Dmitry does is that's why this guy might be connected to Dmitry. So
Yandex is a search engine?
Well, go ahead and read go ahead and explain it.
Okay, so Yandex is a Russian multinational technology company providing internet-related products and services, including an internet search engine called Yandex Search, launched in 1997. Information services, e-commerce, transportation, maps and navigation, mobile applications. So it's pretty much Google, Russia's Google, it seems like.
Yeah, and it was going to be put in as a spy tool originally, and I have an idea of how Dmitry did it. Port mirroring, but I don't really know. I mean, that's my brother's does that kind of shit. That's really deep level stuff. But there's a listener layer, and there's several intercept points. But the idea is, we'll have this search engine. We'll know where all of the nuclear power plants are. We'll know where the breeder reactors are. We'll know where all the biofermenters are, and all this sort of thing. But they take the same code. Here's the thing. They take the same code that does the copying or the port mirroring or the intercept or the man-in-the-middle attack, whatever it is, however they're doing it, and then they put that into the U.S. products. They put that into the Facebook product and the Google product. And then you put in Eric Schmidt, CIA guy. I work for Eric, and I'm not CIA, but Eric certainly was. And he put in all that stuff at Google. He was over at Nevada doing the same thing before he came over to one of our founders worked with him at Novell. One of our founders at WebTrans worked with him there. And so he started the commercial division. Why? We're finding a lot about scientists and visualization who are making aircraft wings and auto parts, but we also want to get into, Las Vegas doesn't have many tall buildings. We want to get into the big buildings. We want to get into the commercial sector with these backdoors.
Mhm.
Who is this, Andy?
Is that the guy in the middle? Is that the Smirnov from yesterday, George? This is
How
This
long
is-
ago is that picture?
2009. This is from the OSCE meeting. Oleg Smirnov.
The eyes look similar. The crow's feet don't quite look. He had more of a crow's hatch, like hair coming into like a V in the middle of his forehead.
Okay.
The lips are a little fatter.
He had the vampire V up front and the
Yeah, yeah, he
Okay.
had more of the vampire V. That does not look like him. The
Okay.
lips are thicker there, so maybe not the right guy.
That was Oleg with a OLEG. I don't know if they like spell his name differently in Ukraine or something.
No, that would be a different guy.
Because I know they pronounce Alexander is the same thing as Alexander. I do know that.
Maybe. Maybe. I don't think so. I mean, it's hard to tell. Advance the clock 15 years.
Yeah.
He might have lost some weight. It might have had. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Well,
I don't think so.
He is an FBI informant that has been cooperating with the FBI supposedly for more than 10 years.
That
And,
guy?
No, Alexander Smirnov.
Oh, this guy. Yeah, this guy.
Yeah. So, do you think that he's the same FBI agent that was being used by? Sorry, I'm trying to mute your mic real quick. That was being used by that Jonathan Buma and the Lev Parnas scandal as well. Do you think that this might be the same person?
Dynamo.
The Dynamo?
Well, let's ask Buma. You know, obviously we're getting into an area of very classified information and so forth. Look, I'm not trying. I'm an American. I told everybody. You know, I'm born in Cleveland, Ohio. I see a guy named Kolomoisky taking over my hometown.
Mhm.
He's also now buying up stuff here in Vegas. Right, I see it happening right in front of my eyes. Right, so through BlackRock, but still, you know, they're taking all the war profits and they're buying casinos and hotels for themselves. So I feel like I'm the patriotic one. Right, they keep saying I'm violating rules and I'm going to go to jail. I feel like I'm fighting for my country. Right, you know, you're from Toledo, Andy. You're not from Stepnogorsk. And I don't think we should use the tools and bioagents from Stepnogorsk on the American people so they can build bigger casinos. You know, that's been the CIA has done this since they were formed. The very first thing they did was make a deal with organized crime to buy casinos in Cuba, right? They had numbers rackets in New York, and the beautiful thing about with the airplane, Howard Hughes aircraft, right? Beautiful thing about the China Clipper going out to Cuba was it was warmer. We could gamble on the boats on the way out, on the way in, and we could have them there for a week gambling. And that's how Florida became Florida, right? And then they shut that down, and then they moved it all here to Vegas. And they've been pumping money through here from war profiteering ever since. Go ahead.
Well, here's some other Smirnov news. I'm not sure if they're 100% related, so I don't want to get into it too much. But there's an investigation that's going on currently in Ukraine. Top official's brother gets massive discount on real estate, pays with unknown funds. So I wonder if it's part of that $6 million fund.
What's the name?
Ihor Smirnov, the brother of deputy head of the president's office, Andrei Smirnov, allegedly bought properties at a price is significantly lower than the market with funds over his living standards. An investigation by Ukrainska Pravda revealed. The investigation says that Ihor Smirnov bought a 100 square meter flat in Lviv worth $164,000 for roughly 32 grand, as well as 10 acres in the Carpathians for $290. 1 acre alone can cost up to $3,000. The brothers could not clearly explain where Ihor Smirnov got the funds. Andrei Smirnov said his brother doesn't officially work anywhere, while Ihor Smirnov claims it was coming from reselling cars. The investigation claimed the properties could have been underestimated to avoid paying taxes, blah, blah, blah. So it's like a Ukrainian government official, two of them that are both named Smirnovs being investigated for money laundering. It's just,
Yeah.
More
Doesn't-
Smirnov controversy in Ukraine, I guess.
Yeah. Well, no, it's interesting. I mean, I think all the news bits are put together into a mosaic. That's a mosaic gathering of intelligence. Every piece of intelligence has some value. What I get out of that is cryptocurrency, and yeah, he has this Tabasco where he's doing false narratives. This Alexander Smirnov in Ukraine that has the offensive guard, that has the mercenary army.
They're a creative advertising company. And, it's like a creative marketing company. That's what they do.
Well, this whole thing has been orchestrated to such a way to make this guy look like a Russian spy, which is completely false. It's completely, exactly 100% the opposite, right? But as far as the Ukraine goes and so forth, my feeling is that you're taking the Cold War weapons from the old Soviet Union, and you've created a whole division. This thing, for instance, was started out of the Pittsburgh division of FBI. This guy, originally the Seattle office started him as being he started working out of the Seattle office. And they said the Seattle office didn't communicate well with the Pittsburgh office. You remember when I went to Pittsburgh, that's where I called it the Asylum Cafe. If you remember when I went to Pittsburgh. And they were creating asylum for all these Ukrainian war criminals, Azov war criminals, under the music cover, and art and music. But that's where Dmitry Alperovich started. He started, and that's where Peter Strzok started. The Pittsburgh division of the FBI was the original division where the counterterrorism started, and that's where we started seeing all these terrorism events. As soon as Dmitry Alperovich and his father went to work for the Pittsburgh FBI. The Pittsburgh FBI took over this case and took over this witness from the Seattle office, and then ran this thing up the flagpole. It has a very orchestrated, third-rate movie quality to it. It seems like, looks and feels and seems like an Adam Schiff C script.
All right, George. Sorry, I'm trying to find some of my old research involving Michael Callahan and working with these Russian Soviet Union's biological weapons and all the scientists that they're bringing over. So it's like we have some of these characters involved in Corona involved with these.
You mentioned that. Remember, Ken Allebeck was in Solon, Ohio, with biofermenters. Remember, Kolomoisky bought all of old War and Steel underground. Remember Azovstal in Ukraine, in Mariupol? What kind of house of horrors were they running there on testing against Slavic people? I went to Cleveland. I went to the Ukrainian church where the kid got shot to do the Homer Simpson Biolabs in Ukraine episode. You remember that episode? Biolabs in Ukraine, biolabs in Ukraine, right?
Yeah.
Where the oligarch goes up in the limo and he goes, "Hey Homer," he jumps in. And there's no biolabs in Ukraine. But anyway, but yeah, I went to the Ukrainian village. Right? If I want to test on Ukrainians, I'm not going to go to Miami. I'm not going to go to Las Vegas. Right? I'm going to go to Cleveland. Right? If I'm going to test bios. If I screw up and I leave some kind of evidence somewhere, I'm going to have an oil spill or a chemical spill in Palestine, Ohio. I'm not going to have one here to cover my tracks. Right? I guess Trump or Biden finally did get to Palestine about a year after Adi Ads did. So got to give him credit. He figured out where Palestine is.
It took him out. I don't even think he could pronounce Palestine at this point. But George Webb, I will let you get out of the sun there. I know you're burning up out
I'm not. Well, we should finish though. We went over a half hour, so yeah.
No, you're the great show today. What is? Well, I guess what do you predict? Here, I'll do my finger snap thing. What do you predict is going to happen with this Alexander Smirnov case in the future? Is anything going to come out of it, or are they going to keep covering this man up? They say they came out and said that he should come back into custody. This man shouldn't be walking in public, so they do want him arrested again in case he flees. What's going to happen to Smirnov, and what's going to come out of this case, George Webb?
I think what you're going to have is as soon as Comer knocks down the committee and disbands the committee, then Smirnov will be rearrested. They'll say he let out He went out to get his newspaper out in the front yard, and he was pictured. That was against his parole provisions. He'll be brought back in, and then he'll be released and slip back into Laguna Beach and right back into his old role at the Anastasia Cafe there in Laguna Beach. I still think the operation here for targeting GOP voters with that Ukrainian group down there in Laguna Hills continues. I think that's going to run all the way through the election. I think the trying to sell people limited partnerships and things they don't know about is going to kill them. And it's never they steal all your money. It's all gone in one day. What they'll do is they'll come in and they'll say they're under investigation and lock your funds up for 20 years until after you die and you forget about your money's locked up, right? Meanwhile, they're using that money for a whole bunch of other things. And it's got to be an international group that does that. It's got to be like Nabu crime gang under the auspices of the FBI, not the FBI itself. But they want your farms. They want your houses. They want your businesses. They're going to have to do compromise somewhere. Where else to do it? In Las Vegas. We have the proof, Andy, because the Super Bowl's here already, Grand Prix here. Here comes the Final Four watch parties here, right? And then right after that, you're going to have the NFL playoffs. I mean, the NHL playoffs.
March Madness.
March Madness is coming up. They're going to do it here. They're going to do it here. This group is doing it here right now. They are targeting that the Republicans in California. True story.
Sure. All right, George Webb, thank you for the reporting, the one and only, one of the few journalists actually covering this Alexander Smirnov case. You would think if you stay there long enough, George, Donnie O'Sullivan's going to come walking around the corner trying to prove whatever story you're doing, and he's going to try and prove you wrong. You think that's going to happen here?
You make a good point. When's the Trump-Russia? When are they going to connect Smirnov to Caputo, Roger Stone, and Trump? You know that's coming. And here's my prediction: Caputo, Stone, Trump. Here we go.
Caputo.
All right, Andy.
George Webb, have a great day, and we will be back on Neighborhood News Network. Text me Friday if you got some time. We'll do another show. On Friday.
Thank you, by the way, to people who Venmo'd me. I don't say it enough, but I can't do this unless I stay at a hotel. Right, as close as I can, right, to the, not that one, but because that's too nice. But anyway, I can't do this unless I can be mobile, and I can't get in and see all the stuff in the courtroom and stuff unless I do have some money for expenses. I have less money than Smirnov. I'll just tell you, his court record said $6,000. So there you go.
Yeah,
so
we need to get access to that $6 million slush fund, George. Webb.
I was going to say, can I be an FBI informant? All I have to do is eat at the Anastasia Cafe in Laguna Beach once a day, and I get to go on trips to all over the world to meet nuclear scientists, and I get $6 million. I'll do it. FBI, I'm ready to go.
You might get a cool camo jacket too. Some new boots, some new boots.
I prefer to have $6,000 in the bank and have my integrity than $6 million in the bank and be a spy for NATO. And that's why I'm choosing to do what I'm doing. So there you go. Thank you, Andy, for all you do.
More patriotic words have never been spoken, George Webb. All right, ladies and gentlemen, George spoke of his Venmo page. Make sure you go to his profile at Twitter and hit that Buy Me a Coffee link, hit that PayPal link, hit that Venmo link, and subscribe to his Substack. We need more old school gumshoe journalists in citizen journalism, and George Webb is one of the few that is leading by example. So throw some cash his way so he can stay in Las Vegas and cover some of his case. Maybe go to LA, try to find where the stash house is at, where the $6 million stash house is at. We need more reporting out of George Webb. So make sure, once again, you go to the top of that Twitter profile page. George Webb, have a wonderful day. This is Neighborhood News Network, the home for citizen journalism, signing out. And always remember, ladies and gentlemen, that blackberries matter.
Started seeing like blackberries, Blackberries, government issued Blackberries, government issued Blackberries, government issued Blackberries. They were Blackberries. They were Blackberries. They were Blackberries. Man, this looks like government issued equipment. Man, this looks like government issued equipment. Man, this looks like government issued equipment. Man, this looks like government issued equipment.